The world was not always quiet. Once it roared. Before the first kings learned to write their names in stone, before fire had a master, the Titans walked the earth. They were older than language, older than mercy. Their voices made oceans rise. Their footsteps carved valleys. They were balance given form, each breath a hymn that kept the stars from falling. And among them stood one who would break that balance, Kaen, the Alpha of Titans. Forged from stormlight and mountain flame, his eyes were dawn and dusk colliding, endless and alive. When he laughed, thunder answered. When he wept, rain fell for days. The gods called him their first creation. Their children called him brother. But creation never forgets the cage that made it. It began as a whisper in his chest, a question the heavens had never heard. Why should we kneel to those who fear our strength? The question became echo, echo became fire, and fire became rebellion. The skies blackened. Lightning speared through the clouds like divine veins tearing open. The world shook as titans gathered, stone-skinned giants with rivers running through their veins, creatures of frost and flame, of air and thunder. They met at the heart of the world, where the stars bled into the sea, and Kaen raised his hand. "Let the gods look upon what they cast aside," he said, voice rolling through the mountains. "We are not weapons. We are breath. We are the proof that even light can love the dark." The wind held its breath, and then the heavens split. The gods descended in a storm of gold. No faces, only radiance. Their voices layered with 1,000 tongues. "Obedience is the law of creation," they said. But Kaen stood unbowed. "You forged us to endure," he answered. "You forgot that endurance can defy." The first blow fell. It was not sound but light, pure and merciless. It struck the Titans like judgment given flesh. Kaen caught it in his hands. For one heartbeat, he held a god's fury and broke it. The shock ripped through heaven. Stars flared and died. For that defiance, the gods turned the sky into war. The battlefield became a living wound. Mountains split, rivers boiled, clouds burned red. The cries of Titans rose higher than thunder. Some screamed rage, some prayed, some sang their deaths into beauty. And still Kaen fought. Every strike shattered continents. Every breath remade the wind. He was unstoppable, until the goddess of frost appeared. She did not come to destroy him. She came to pity him. Her name was lost, but her song lingered, soft as falling snow. She touched his cheek and whispered, "There is no victory against the Maker, only mercy in surrender." Kaen looked into her silver eyes and saw the only God who had ever grieved. "I will not kneel," he said, "but if I fall, remember me." When her tears hit the earth, they froze, and the gods took that moment of hesitation to strike. Blades of light pierced his chest. Chains of celestial metal coiled around his limbs. Kaen roared, not in pain but in mourning, as one by one his kin were unmade. The Titan of flame fell, his body bursting into volcano. The Titan of stone collapsed, her heart becoming the mountains. The Titan of wind scattered, her laughter forever trapped in storms. Each name vanished. Each soul was rewritten into nature itself. Only Kaen remained, kneeling in ash and ruin, chains biting deep. The gods circled him like vultures of light. "You would have undone creation," they said. His blood burned where it touched the snow. "I would have freed it," he whispered. The goddess of frost turned away, unable to watch. So Kaen lifted his head, and with his last strength, he tore her song from the air and pressed it into his heart. A single note, bright as a star, sealed inside him, his final act of defiance. "Then I will sleep," he vowed. "And when her voice returns, the world will wake with me." The ground opened, glaciers forming in the wound his body left behind. The world sighed and hardened, and beneath that endless ice, Kaen's body turned to crystal, heart still beating, slow as the turning of ages. The war ended. Silence fell. The gods left the earth to heal itself, blind to the pulse still echoing beneath the frost. Where Kaen had fallen, mountains rose. Where titans had died, forests grew. But in the stillness between wind and snow, something lingered. A heartbeat, patient and ancient. Centuries passed. The mortals built kingdoms atop the graves of gods. They mined the bones of titans, called them jewels. They forgot the voices that once taught rivers to sing. Only the oldest songs remembered. A lullaby mothers hummed to restless children on stormy nights. Sleep, giant of fire, under the sea of ice. When the world forgets your name, the song will find you. In hidden temples, the priestesses whispered of the Omega, a soul born once in an age whose voice could pierce eternity. They said she would not rule, but heal, that her song would wake what the gods had buried, and love what they had feared. They said when she sang, the glaciers would bleed light. No one believed them. Yet far to the north, where the sky never rests and the auroras burn like ghosts, the ice began to shift. Tiny cracks veined through its depths. Through them pulsed a faint glow, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. A heartbeat. The wind carried it across the tundra, through the bones of sleeping beasts, over mountains that remembered his name. Each beat whispered through the cold, calling to something not yet born. And somewhere, beyond the reach of gods, a child took her first breath. The sound of it rippled through the air like the faintest echo of a forgotten song. The world shivered, because even silence knows when a promise stirs. Beneath the ice, Kaen's eyes moved, just once, not open, not waking, only remembering. The gods in their high thrones felt it and turned their faces away. But the goddess of frost, the one who had pitied him, looked down through the veil of clouds and whispered into the wind, "Forgive me, my fallen son. Your time will come again." The glaciers groaned in answer. The world held its breath, and far above, the northern lights unfurled like banners across the sky, green, gold, violet, each a ribbon of the fire still sleeping in the heart of a titan. The story would say he died. But legends, like gods, lie. Beneath the frozen world, Kaen waits, not dead, not dreaming, waiting for the one whose song can wake him. And in that waiting, the world trembles, because every heartbeat under the ice is a countdown, to love, to ruin, to the return of the Alpha who defied heaven. The storm did not begin with thunder. It began with silence. The kind of silence that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to break. Mira had grown up beneath quiet skies, but she had never known a silence like this. It crept under her skin, tasted like frost and iron, whispered at the edge of her hearing. By the time she realized it wasn't silence at all, but listening, the snow was already falling sideways. The caravan stretched behind her in a blur of white and shadow, oxen groaning under the weight of frozen breath. Lanterns swung wildly in the wind, their light swallowed by the blizzard. Someone shouted her name, but the storm ate the sound whole. Then the world vanished. The road, the sledges, the people, all gone, pulled into the screaming white. Mira's horse panicked, reared, broke its harness, and disappeared into the storm. She was left standing alone in the teeth of the wind. The cold didn't just bite. It sank. It clawed its way through fur and skin and bone until even her heartbeat felt slow, syrup thick. She stumbled forward, calling for anyone, anything, but only the wind answered, mocking, hollow, alive. And then in the distance she saw light, faint, trembling, like a candle behind glass. She followed it. Each step sank deep. Snow rose to her knees, her waist. Her body ached, lungs burning, but the light never dimmed. It waited. When her knees finally gave way, her gloved hands struck stone, the mountain's edge, A narrow fissure yawned before her, black and deep, rimmed with frost. It wasn't safety. It was a wound. But the wind seemed to whisper from its depths. "Come in." She obeyed. Inside, the world changed. The storm's roar softened into a low hum, like a heartbeat wrapped in stone. The air was sharp and old, thick with something older than time. Her lantern flickered, casting pale fire across the cavern walls, ice glimmering in sheets, veins of silver threading through them like frozen rivers. And there, at the heart of it, something vast. A figure encased in the glacier, half buried, half revealed. At first she thought it was a statue. Then her light caught the edge of a face. She froze. The shape was human, but impossibly large. Shoulders like cliffs, hair suspended in frost, eyes closed as though dreaming. A faint shimmer of gold dusted his skin beneath the ice, the color of old fire trapped in crystal. She stepped closer. Each breath came shallow, trembling. Something in her chest thrummed, a rhythm that wasn't hers. Her hand lifted without thought, drawn by a pull older than instinct. The air grew heavy. The closer she came, the louder it grew, a sound beneath hearing, like deep water moving under glass. The light in her lantern dimmed, flickered, died. Darkness. Only the glow of the ice remained, faint and breathing. Her fingertips met the surface. The cold was alive. It shot up her arm like lightning and settled behind her ribs, burning cold and bright. Her breath caught. Her vision swam. A whisper, soft and deep, unfurled in her mind. "Who calls me?" She stumbled back, heart hammering. The whisper followed. It wasn't sound. It was pulse, echo, memory. The glacier around her began to tremble. Cracks snaked through the ice, spreading like veins of light. "Stop," she whispered. "Please." But the mountain was already waking. The glow beneath the ice flared, flooding the cavern in gold and blue fire. The sound became thunder, ice-fractured shards flying like broken stars. And through it all, a low, shuddering breath, drawn after a century of silence. Mira fell to her knees. Her palms still burned, glowing faintly where they had touched the ice. In their light she saw movement, fingers twitching within the crystal, a slow opening of eyes the color of molten dawn. He was awake. The air collapsed inward, pulling around him, bending toward his will. Frost turned to mist. Stone cracked beneath his weight. "Soon," he murmured. His voice wasn't sound. It was earth and thunder and storm, layered together. Then his gaze found her. For a heartbeat, she forgot to breathe. Those eyes, ancient, furious, lost, pinned her in place. Power poured off him like heat from a forge, yet she could not look away. He reached for the air between them, slow, uncertain, as though relearning the shape of movement. The glow from her palms flared brighter, meeting his. The connection sizzled, light to light, heartbeat to heartbeat. Something unseen shifted between them, ancient recognition whispering through her blood. And then the mountain roared. The last wall of ice shattered. Kaen, the last titan, rose, steam and light swirling around him. Chains of frozen gold snapped from his wrists. The cavern shook, stalactites raining from the ceiling. Mira crawled backward, blinded by the glow. When the light finally dimmed, she saw him kneeling in the snowmelt, chest heaving. Each breath sent tremors through the stone. He looked at his hands, at the frost dissolving from his skin, then at her. "You are not a god," he said, voice hoarse, curious. "No," she whispered. I don't know what I am." A strange calm settled over the ruin. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing like the ticking of a clock. Kaen tilted his head as if listening to something only he could hear. Then quietly, too quietly for thunder to ever sound like this, he said, "Then why does your heart call to mine?" Mira didn't answer. She couldn't. Outside, the blizzard had stopped. The silence had changed. It was no longer waiting. It was listening. Kaen rises, disoriented, his immense form scraping against the jagged ceiling of the cavern. Dust and ice tumble from the rocks above, rattling to the floor in tiny avalanches. His voice, deep and resonant, shakes the cave walls like rolling thunder. Mira instinctively steps back, yet the light that still pulses faintly in her palms holds her steady. She senses it, a fragile, trembling bridge between her power and his. The giant kneels suddenly, so enormous that the ground groans beneath him. This act of gentleness is the first conscious choice he has made in over 100 years. Mira's heart races as she tries to reconcile the massive figure with the spark of humanity she glimpses in his eyes. "I am not here to harm," Kaen rumbles. "I do not know why I awaken." Mira swallows, her throat dry. "You've been asleep a long time," she says softly. "The storm, it led me here." Kane's amber eyes, glowing faintly with a molten fire, trace the fractured ice at his feet. "A century, perhaps more," he murmurs. "I was meant to be forgotten, and yet, you found me." "I didn't mean to," Mira admits, stepping closer despite the fear coiling in her stomach. I felt something calling me. I couldn't stop myself." The giant shifts, sending tremors through the cavern. "Power," he says, his voice low and reverent. "You carry the same kind of power as the first guardians. You can awaken the old, and with it, the old dangers." Mira's hands pulse with the faint light of her energy. "I don't know why I have it," she confesses. "I've always just felt things, felt what others cannot see." Kane's immense brow furrows. "Then perhaps you were meant to find me. Perhaps you are the key to the balance I was sworn to guard, and to the chaos I have kept locked away." A shiver runs through the cavern as he shifts again. Mira steadies herself against the jagged rock, the air vibrating with a hum that resonates deep in her bones. "Balance?" she asks cautiously. "What kind of balance?" Kaen lifts his massive hand, tracing the cracks in the ice where his body had been frozen. "A balance between what is forgotten and what must never rise. I was created to protect it. Yet I failed, and now, awakened, the world outside may not yet be ready." Mira feels the enormity of his words. The storm outside rages with renewed fury, as if echoing the weight of his confession. "Then, what do we do?" she whispers. The giant's amber eyes meet hers, and for the first time, she senses a flicker of hope beneath the colossal shadow. "We prepare, for the threads of the old world are unraveling, and only together can we weave them right." A gust of wind howls through the cavern mouth, carrying flakes of snow and echoes of distant mountains. Mira shivers, not from the cold but from the magnitude of destiny that now rests upon her shoulders. "Then we start," she says. "Show me everything." Kaen nods solemnly. "You will need courage, Mira, for what awakens is not just power, but the darkness that seeks it." He rises slowly, towering above her once more. Each step sends tremors into the ground, but she no longer feels fear, only a strange, compelling certainty. He moves toward a hidden wall of rock at the back of the cavern and places a massive hand against it. The stone shudders, cracks spider-webbing across the surface, until the wall splits to reveal a narrow staircase carved into the mountain itself. "This way," Kaen intones. "The relics of the first guardians lie beyond. You must understand them, for your power alone will not suffice. The storm, the awakening, they are only the beginning." Mira follows, her steps small and careful compared to Kane's thunderous ones. The staircase descends into darkness, the air growing warmer and thick with the scent of ancient magic. Every surface glimmers faintly, as though the mountain itself remembers the long-forgotten guardians who once walked these halls. "Tell me," Mira asks, "why were you frozen? Who, or what wanted you gone?" Kaen's jaw tightens, and his gaze hardens. Enemies of balance, those who feared the old ways. They sought to bury me until the world forgot my existence. I was a weapon and a shield, too dangerous to awaken, yet necessary to survive. Mira feels a chill at his words. A weapon? Yes, Kaen replies, his voice heavy with centuries of restraint. Power can protect or destroy. I was meant to protect, but unchecked. Even the most righteous force becomes a curse. That is why I was sealed, why I was left to sleep until the chosen one arrived. The staircase opens into a vast chamber, walls etched with glowing runes, and the silhouettes of guardians in battle. Crystals embedded in the floor hum faintly, responding to Mira's energy. She steps closer, awestruck. These are the first guardians? Kaen nods. They were like you, like the sparks of the world's hope, and like you, they face the shadow that now stirs once more. Her palms tingle. Then, I am meant to fight this shadow too? Yes, Kaen says, but not alone. You must learn. You must endure. Your power is a thread in the weave of balance. Pull too hard and you unravel it, too soft and it breaks. Mira gazes at the relics, ancient weapons, orbs of light, and scrolls etched with magic older than memory. She can feel their energy mingling with hers, calling, teaching, whispering. She reaches toward a small crystal orb, and the hum of power surges into her hands. Visions flash, storms raging across mountains, forests bending under unseen forces, and a shadow moving like smoke across cities she has never seen. It begins, Kaen murmurs. Your first test. To wield this power you must understand its cost. Mira steadies herself, her heartbeat loud in the vast chamber. I'm ready, she says. Kaen's colossal form kneels once more, bringing his eyes level with hers. Then open your mind, Mira. Let the light guide you. Let it teach you. But beware. Every lesson has its price, and the darkness waits for even the smallest hesitation. A crack of thunder shakes the chamber as the storm outside escalates. Mira takes a deep breath, stepping fully into the light of her awakening. Around her the relics glow brighter, resonating with her pulse. She feels the weight of destiny, the whisper of power, and the presence of the giant who should not be, her guide, her protector, and the living proof that the world is far more dangerous and wondrous than she has ever imagined. Kaen's voice rumbles once more, steady and commanding. Mira, the world watches, though it knows not. And now, so must you. With that, the chamber seems to breathe, the walls alive with the echoes of forgotten battles and the promise of ones yet to come. Mira feels her resolve harden. Whatever comes next, she will not falter. The first threads of fate have been woven, and the storm is only the beginning. But for the knowledge that he alone understood the power stirring within her. Before they could leave, the cavern trembled with distant hoofbeats and the clash of metal. Mira's heart jumped. They're here, she whispered. Kaen's amber eyes flared, and his massive form moved with astonishing speed for one so enormous. He crouched low, lowering Mira behind the jagged rocks at the cave's mouth. Through the cracks, she saw soldiers approaching, torches slicing through the storm's gray light. They will not stop until they have you, Kaen said, his voice steady despite the tension. We must move now. With a strength that seemed almost impossible, Kaen lifted Mira onto his shoulder. Each step he took shook the ground, sending echoes rolling through the cavern walls. They burst through the cave entrance, snow and wind whipping around them, and disappeared into the crystalline forest beyond. The forest was alive with light, each tree and shard of crystal refracting the storm into shards of color. But beauty offered no comfort, only obstacles. Jagged branches cut like knives, and hidden crevices threatened to swallow the unwary. Yet Kaen moved with certainty, weaving between the crystalline trees as though he had been born to navigate these ruins. Behind them, the soldiers pursued relentlessly, their shouts echoing through the storm. Mira's grip tightened on the crystal orb, her powers flaring instinctively. Light surged through her palms, forming shields that deflected shards of ice and crystal that the forest seemed to hurl at them. Kaen's presence steadied her. The bond between them thrummed like a living thing, warning, guiding, and protecting. As night fell, they reached the outskirts of an ancient ruin, a city long abandoned, its spires broken, streets empty but for the whispers of wind. The shadows of the collapsed towers stretched across the frost-covered ground like skeletal fingers. Mira shivered, the power in her hands illuminating the ruins with a soft, trembling glow. "They will not follow us here," Kaen said, his voice low and cautious. "Few dare enter the abandoned cities and fewer still survive their trials." Mira looked around, awe mingling with dread. "What trials?" Kaen's gaze swept the desolate streets. "The city tests all who enter. Magic older than memory lingers here. Only those attuned to the balance can move through it unscathed. We must keep moving, and you must learn to trust the light inside you." Suddenly, a flash of movement in the ruins caught Mira's eye. Soldiers had reached the city's edge, their torches throwing long, menacing shadows. One of them raised a horn, and the sound split the night air, a call that echoed through the stone towers and crumbled streets. Kaen's massive hand clenched into a fist, and the ground beneath it cracked. "Hold on," he said. In a single motion, he slammed his hand against the frozen ground. A shockwave of light and power rippled outward, sending the soldiers sprawling back. The horn sounded again, shrill with anger, but the forest and ruins had already swallowed Kaen and Mira from sight. Mira's chest heaved, her palms burning with residual light. How are they still coming?" Kaen's amber eyes glowed. "Because they do not understand. They only know fear and orders. But the bond between us, and your power, it will guide us. You will need to harness it fully, or we will not survive the nights ahead." As the storm raged, Mira felt the weight of destiny pressing down, but also a thrill she had never known. The forest of crystal and ruin stretched endlessly before them, a maze of light and shadow, danger and wonder. With Kaen at her side, she realized that running was only the beginning. To survive, she would have to embrace her power, and the bond that flared whenever danger came near. Through the twisting paths and shattered spires, they moved swiftly, unseen yet ever pursued. Mira's confidence grew with each passing moment, her hands glowing steadily now, her steps surer. She glanced at Kaen, towering and vigilant. "I won't let them take me," she said, the determination in her voice stronger than the storm. "And I will not let them," Kaen replied, a rumble of assurance resonating through the ruins. "Together, we are the storm they cannot hope to survive." The night deepened, the storm's fury no lessened. Somewhere in the distance, the echoes of pursuit reminded them that the world outside had already marked Mira as a target. Yet, in the forest of crystal and ruin, a bond stronger than fear flared. A bond that would shape the battles to come, the trials of power, and the unfolding of destinies older than memory. And so they ran, through light and shadow, the valley, through crystal and once
ruin,
alive with the
with the
songs
storm
of wind
chasing,
and river, and the world
now
waiting.
hummed
With tension and fear. Mira's journey had truly begun. News of Kaen's awakening had spread faster than the spring torrents, carried by the whispers of villagers, hunters, and wandering merchants. Every village along the slopes and terraces of the valley spoke in hushed tones of the giant who should not be, the girl who wielded ancient power, and the inevitable destruction they feared would follow. The clans of the valley gathered in secret, their council chamber a hollowed cave lined with stone torches that cast long, trembling shadows. Each clan elder's face was etched with worry and suspicion. They had lived for generations in the shadow of the mountains, believing that the Titan was a story, a relic of times better left forgotten. Now he walked the earth again. "We cannot withstand him," Elder Torvik, head of the Stoneclaw clan, declared, voice quivering. "The girl, Mira, she draws the power of the old, and he, Kaen, he is a force beyond our comprehension. If we resist, we are all doomed." Elder Vera of the Riverwind clan frowned, her eyes narrowing. And what do you propose? That we bend the knee to fear? That we hand her over? Do you not see? Torvik's hands shook as he gestured to the valley below, where the smoke of the approaching storm mingled with the distant light of fires. We have survived by choosing wisely. If we offer her to Warden Elric, perhaps he will spare us. Perhaps we can survive to see another season. Mira, unaware of the council's plotting, had been resting in the ruins of a long-abandoned temple, exhausted from the long journey through crystal forests and shadowed paths. Her glow, still bright from the bond with Kaen, flickered softly, like a candle in the wind. She had sensed something, an unease that gnawed at the edges of her consciousness, but she could not yet see the threads of betrayal weaving around her. By nightfall, the valley clans had acted. Under the cover of darkness, they had surrounded Mira, their torches casting eerie reflections across the walls of the temple. Despite her attempts to defend herself with her light, the sheer numbers overwhelmed her. The crystal orb's glow pulsed weakly as she struggled to summon more power, but the bond with Kaen could not reach her fully across the distance. One of the clan leaders stepped forward, holding a rope braided from silvered threads, enchanted to restrain magic. "We mean no harm beyond what is necessary," he said, voice trembling. "The warden will ensure your safety. And ours." Mira's heart sank. You're handing me over?" "It is survival," Torvik said flatly. "Better her than us." Bound and helpless, Mira was escorted down the valley paths toward the fortress of High Warden Elric, the massive stone structure looming like a sentinel against the storm-laden sky. The soldiers of the warden awaited at the gates, eyes wide with awe and fear at the glow radiating from her. Mira's breath came in quick, shallow bursts as she realized the full depth of the betrayal. Far above the valley, Kaen's amber eyes blazed. He had sensed her pain, her fear, the force restraining her power. The bond flared, sharp and urgent, drawing him like a tide over rocks. With a roar that shook the peaks themselves, Kaen began his descent. Each step he took tore the earth, sent boulders tumbling, and cracked the mountainside. Trees bent and splintered under the force of his passage. Rivers rippled and churned, and the valley seemed to quake with his fury. The clans scattered in terror, their fears realized, yet no words could halt Kaen's advance. Soldiers scrambled, shields raised against the impossible, yet they were like ants before the storm. The gates of the fortress cracked as he approached, stone groaning and shattering beneath the weight of his anger. Every breath he took scorched the air. Every movement radiated raw, destructive power. The forest of crystal and ruin stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of jagged light and shadow. Mira stumbled over fractured stones, her breath ragged, her body trembling from exhaustion. Every step sent shocks through her, not just from the cold, but from the strain of her power. Each use of the light, each pulse from the relic, had drained her more than she realized. Kaen noticed immediately, his amber eyes narrowing with concern. The glow in Mira's palms flickered weakly, a faint halo barely illuminating the darkened forest floor. "Mira," he rumbled, his voice deep and commanding yet tinged with worry. "You are pushing too far. Step back. Let me guide you." I can't stop now," Mira gasped, gripping the crystal orb so tightly it seemed a part of her. "If I don't keep moving, the soldiers... they'll..." Her voice faltered as dizziness swept over her, a cold sweat prickling her skin. Her legs buckled beneath her. Kaen's massive hand shot out with terrifying speed, catching her before she fell. The force of his touch sent vibrations through her bones, and for a moment, the world swayed like the surface of a storm-tossed sea. His amber eyes locked onto hers, searching for the strength that had carried her so far. "You are drained," he murmured. "The bond we share. It must be used." Mira's eyes widened. "Bond? But I thought..." Kaen crouched low, lowering his enormous frame so that she could be lifted gently. The earth groaned under his weight, shards of crystal quivering with the rhythm of his heartbeat. "The bond is not just protection," he said. It is life. It is trust. It is balance. And right now you need it more than anything. He laid a massive hand over her chest. Mira flinched, fear and uncertainty flashing across her features. She felt a pulse, strong, deep, resonant, a rhythm unlike any human heartbeat, yet strangely familiar. Energy surged from his body into hers, a warm current that burned through her exhaustion and sickness like fire and water intertwined. At first it was overwhelming. Mira gasped, her body shivering as her light flickered violently. It was not pain exactly, but a sensation so profound that it stole her breath. The sense of another life moving into hers, of a consciousness blending for a single, fragile moment. She could feel Kaen's memories not in detail, but as echoes. Centuries of solitude, battles fought and won, mountains guarded, silence endured. This isn't passion, Mira whispered, voice trembling. It's like your soul. Kaen's deep rumble resonated through her chest. Not mine alone, he said. Yours as well. The bond shares what is needed. Life, strength, balance. It is not love, not as you think, but it is connection. Light meeting light, soul meeting soul. For now, you will glow brighter than I, because I give what you lack, and in doing so, I grow smaller. Mira's body tingled with renewed energy, the sickness that had clawed at her insides retreating as light coursed through her veins. She rose unsteadily to her feet,
The title
radiant,
felt too heavy for her
glow
name,
illuminating
too
the
ancient
frozen
for her
forest
years.
like a beacon. She felt alive
I'm
in a
no
way
heart,
she had never
she
imagined,
whispered,
shaking
but
her
also
head.
aware.
I don't
deeply
even know
aware
what
of
that
the
means
cost.
to Kaen.
She
Kaen
looked
stepped
up at him,
closer,
his
his
enormous
massive
frame
shadow
had shrunk
falling
over
slightly,
her,
shoulders
gentle as a
rounding,
cloak.
a faint exhaustion in
It
his
stands
stance,
what it sounds.
yet his eyes remained
He said
clear,
softly.
steadfast.
You are the
Unwavering.
pulse the world lost.
Kaen, when your
She
song
murmured,
reached me, it
her
reached them
hand still
too.
pulsing with light.
You did not only
I-
heal me,
I feel it.
you awakened the memory of
bond.
balance. The balance, the ice fields.
He lowered his
brighter,
massive head so that
waves
their
of
eyes
light
met.
rippling outward like
Balance
breath
is
across
born
a
not
sleeping
from
sea.
equality,
but from necessity.
Frost melted where the
Your light
beams
rises,
passed.
revealing
Mine steadies.
green beneath the white.
Your soul is strong,
Ancient
but it
moss.
must be guided.
Roots, my essence
The first
strengthens you,
whispers
and
of
in
spring.
return,
Your
Mira fell
presence
to her
sustains me.
knees, overwhelmed
We are
by
no
the
longer
beauty
two
unfolding
beings
before
alone.
her. The
We are
Titan's
tethered,
eyes shimmered, and in
each
this
one
tether,
reflecting
her light like
We
mirrors
survive.
of dawn.
She
Mira's
turned to
chest
Kaen,
swelled with awe
tears
and
glinting at the
understanding
corners
of her eyes. This isn't destruction, it's life. Kaen nodded slowly. And life always comes at a price. Before she could ask, he extended his hand toward the distant peaks. Beneath one of them, a darker glow began to stir, not gold or silver, but red, pulsing like a wound. Mira's chest tightened. What is that? The remnants of what ended the first age, Kaen said. Not all titans were keepers of life. Some bound themselves to fire and ruin. If your awakening reached the sleeping ones, it reached them too, she finished, voice trembling. The ground split slightly in the far distance, and for a fleeting second she thought she saw movement, a dark shape crawling beneath the ice like a serpent trapped in glass. The warmth in her chest faltered, replaced by dread. So by waking the world, we may have woken its shadow. Kaen looked at her, sorrow heavy in his gaze. The world cannot rise without its reflection. You brought balance. That means both light and dark must return. The wind howled through the peaks, scattering snowflakes like sparks. The kneeling titans raised their heads slowly, as if sensing the shift, the tremor beneath the tremor. Their light flickered, uncertainty rippling through their vast forms. Mira closed her eyes, centering herself in the hum that still pulsed through her. The bond between her and Kaen burned steady, a thread of gold anchoring her in the swirl of fear. She breathed deeply and began to hum again, a soft tone that reached into the earth, into the ice, into the trembling world below. The Titan's light steadied. The air grew warmer. Even Kaen's expression softened as he felt her voice weave calm through the chaos. When the last note faded, she opened her eyes. We can't undo what's been woken, she said quietly. But maybe we can guide it. Kaen's massive hand curled gently near her, as if shielding her from unseen winds. Then guide it we shall, heart of renewal. She looked up at him sharply. Don't call me that. He smiled faintly, an expression rare and disarming on his colossal face. Then what shall I call you? Mira, she whispered. Just Mira. He inclined his head. Then Mira it is. But the world will not forget the name you've earned. Around them, the Titans shifted, their movements slow, deliberate. One stepped forward, a being so vast its shadow blanketed the entire valley. Its chest bore a great crack through which faint light spilled like molten gold. When it spoke, its voice was deep enough to rattle the snow from the cliffs. Heart of renewal, the ice remembers your promise. Mira rose, her hair lifting in the wind, her glow no longer uncertain but radiant. Then let the ice remember mercy, she said. Let it remember that life must grow where death once ruled. The Titan bowed low, and with that motion the others followed. Their light rippled outward in a wave that
Mira's
spanned
song
mountains,
lingered
like a whisper of hope, a promise of power harnessed, of balance restored, of bonds unbroken even in the face of treachery. And in that moment, amid the ruins of betrayal and the echo of song, Mira and Kaen understood a truth older than kingdoms. The strength of two souls bound in purpose and spirit could overcome any fear, any anger, any shadow that sought to claim them. The bond between human and giant had proven itself. And nothing, not the valley, not the clans, not even the warden, could undo it. It began as a tremor beneath the snow, soft at first, like the breath of something dreaming under the earth, then deeper, rolling through the bones of the mountains, rippling through ice fields and frozen lakes. The sound was not thunder, not storm, but awakening. Mira felt it before she heard it. A pulse, ancient, slow, steady. It thrummed beneath her feet and inside her chest, as though the world itself had found a heartbeat once more. She stood in the ruins of the warden's fortress, the storm's rage now spent. Light still shimmered faintly around her, not the harsh flare of power, but a softer, living glow. Kaen knelt beside her, his enormous form quiet, reverent, the amber in his eyes warm and steady. He lowered his head, voice deep and tender. Your voice returned life to a monster, he murmured. Let it now return life to the world. The words struck her like sunlight through cloud. Her song, the one that had calmed his fury, still lingered in the air, its echo caught in the folds of the wind. And as that echo spread, the tremor beneath them deepened. Snow shifted, ice cracked. Valleys that had slept for centuries groaned as though stretching from a long dream. All around them, the mountains began to sing back. A low, resonant hum, not made by wind or stone, rose from deep within the glaciers. Kaen stood slowly, gazing at the horizon as faint lines of light appeared across the distant ice fields, veins of gold and silver threading through the white. Mira's eyes widened. What is that? The song, Kaen whispered. She had thought of Kaen as a guardian. It calls to them, a protector, a colossal presence that could shield her from the world. But now, in the quiet of the frozen forest, she understood that they were more. They were partners in the truest sense, two halves of a delicate balance, their energies intertwined, their destinies bound. Do you feel it? Kaen asked, voice low, almost gentle. The surge of life, the rhythm of the bond? Yes, Mira said, exhaling shakily. It's like everything around us hums with the same pulse. I can feel the forest, the ruins, even the storm beyond. It's like the world itself bends to our presence. Kaen nodded, a rare softness in his amber gaze. And that is why you must learn control. Because one day the bond will not merely heal you. It may have to save lives, perhaps even sway the course of the world. Mira's glow brightened further. the light spilling outward and refracting through the crystalline trees. The effect was dazzling. The forest shimmered in waves of gold and silver, shadows dancing as though alive. She felt strength flowing into every limb, clarity in her mind, and a profound connection not only to Kaen, but to the world around them. She realized, with a start, that the bond was more than magic. It was understanding, empathy, and life force entwined. It was a truth that transcended human limits, a bridge between mortal and ancient being, and it was now hers to wield. Kaen lowered his hand slowly, the warmth lingering in the space between them. "Do not mistake this for weakness," he cautioned. "The bond is powerful, but it is also fragile. Overreach, and the balance shatters. Respect it, nurture it, and it will sustain you when nothing else can." Mira nodded solemnly, her glowing form a testament to the strength she now carried. She could feel Kaen's presence beside her, steady, enduring, a colossal anchor amid the storm of life and magic. For the first time, she understood the depth of what had been born in that forest. It was not merely healing. It was a covenant, a thread of light tying human and giant together. Not passion, not fleeting emotion, but soul sharing at its purest. Life flowing into life, strength into strength, essence into essence. Kaen straightened, his frame regaining a portion of its former height, yet still tempered by the transfer of energy. Mira's glow pulsed brighter, steady now, controlled, a living lighthouse in the darkness of the forest. Together they stood, sentinel and ward, bound by something that surpassed words. The balance between them had been established, fragile yet undeniable. The storm beyond the forest raged on, but in that moment, Mira felt unassailable. She could see the path ahead, the trials yet to come, and the hunters who would follow. Yet the bond with Kaen fortified her in ways she had never imagined. She was no longer alone, and neither was he. Together, they were a force that the world could not ignore. A light shining across shadow, a tether of life bridging two souls against the tides of fate. Kaen's amber eyes met hers once more, and for a long moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. "Mira," he said, voice resonant and unwavering, "the bond is born. Remember it, protect it, and we will endure everything that comes." Mira's chest swelled with certainty. She had survived the sickness of her power, felt the bond pulse through her very being, and understood for the first time the intricate dance between human and giant, light and shadow, soul and soul. The balance was no longer theoretical. It was alive, breathing between them, a beacon in the frozen crystalline forest. And as they moved forward together, Kaen's step slow but purposeful, Mira's glow illuminating the path, the forest seemed to whisper, "The bond is born, and nothing will break it." Ice began to melt across the lands, not violently, but gently, revealing valleys long buried, rivers that glittered with long-forgotten color, and forests awakening from centuries of frost. Birds took to the air. The sky turned pale blue for the first time in 100 years. Kaen stood in silence, watching the world breathe again. He had once thought himself cursed to destroy, yet now he saw his strength mirrored in rebirth. Mira, glowing with the light of both human fragility and divine power, turned to him with wonder. This is what it feels like to begin again," she whispered. He nodded. "And to begin again is the hardest thing the world can do." A faint tremor stirred beneath them again, not of awakening this time, but of movement far below, something ancient shifting in its sleep. The red light pulsed once, distant but distinct. Mira met Kaen's gaze. Neither spoke, but the truth passed between them. Quiet, inevitable. For every dawn, there must be shadow. For every renewal, a reckoning. Still, as she reached for his hand, her small, glowing palm resting against his massive finger, Mira chose to believe in what she had seen. The Titans kneeling not for war but for peace. The world had remembered life. And even if darkness waited beneath the ice, she would meet it not with fear, but with the same song that had woken hope in the heart of a monster. Together, they turned toward the rising sun, toward the thawing world, the stirring Titans, and the uncertain future beyond the mountains. And far beneath the ice, gaze to her, something vast and unseen smiled. The ones who once were like me, the Titans beneath the ice. Mira's breath caught. Legends had whispered of more, giants sleeping beneath the frozen world, buried after the age of fire, forgotten by humankind. But those were stories. Fairy tales told to frighten children or to glorify long-dead gods. Until now. The ground shuddered again, not violently, but with weight, purpose. From the horizon's edge, the white expanse rippled like water disturbed by a massive hand. And then, the first silhouette began to rise. A mountain shifted. Snow slid from its sides in cascading rivers. Beneath, a colossal figure of stone and ice unfurled, its movements slow, graceful, ancient. Then another, and another. Within minutes, the valley was surrounded by Titans. Their forms gleamed faintly in the dawn light, some wreathed in moss and frost, others glimmering with crystal veins and half-buried ruins upon their shoulders. Their eyes flickered open one by one, soft glows of azure, gold, or amber, and each exhaled a deep mist that turned the air to glittering frost. Mira trembled, awe stealing her voice. They're alive. Kaen stood beside her, still as a temple statue. His voice was heavy with centuries of memory. They have waited for the signal, for the one who could awaken them without war. The Titans began to move, not to strike, not to rise for destruction, but to kneel. One by one, these colossal beings lowered themselves, heads bowed, until Mira stood surrounded by giants all bent in reverence. Her glow brightened, pulsing softly in time with their breaths. A voice, and not a sound, but a feeling, rose within her. It was not Kaen's, nor her own, but something vast, collective, echoing through the world itself. Heart of renewal, you have come at last. Her knees nearly buckled. The mountains breathed again. For the first time in centuries, the air carried warmth instead of warning. The glaciers that once imprisoned the world began to weep, their tears falling as rivers of light that carved through the valleys like silver veins. From those veins flowers bloomed, timid at first, then bold, spreading across the thawing land in a surge of color that seemed almost unreal after so much gray. Mira stood at the crest of the valley, the wind tugging gently at her hair. Below her the Titans moved, no longer the harbingers of ruin, but colossal gardeners of renewal. Their great hands shaped rivers, lifted fallen stones, and cradled forests back to life. Every step they took sprouted green. Every breath they exhaled filled the air with shimmering pollen that turned the clouds gold. Kaen stood beside her, watching them in silence. His once storm-dark eyes were softer now, reflecting the world he had nearly destroyed, and now vowed to protect. They listened to you, Mira whispered, her voice trembling like the edge of a harp string. They listened to us, Kaen replied. His voice was still deep, still carrying the echoes of thunder, but beneath it was warmth, the tone of a man learning peace. You showed them what waking can mean. She smiled faintly, gazing at the horizon where the first true dawn in centuries painted the ice with rose-colored light. It wasn't me. It was the world. It just needed someone to believe it wasn't doomed. Kaen's hand brushed hers. His touch was careful, reverent, as though she might shatter if he forgot what she had taught him. Belief, he murmured, was something even Titans forgot. In the heart of the thawing mountains, a vast crystal pulsed, the same one that once imprisoned Kaen and the other Titans in their frozen tombs. Now it glowed softly, resonating with Mira's heartbeat. From it radiated waves of warmth that reached across the continents, awakening long, silent seeds, thawing frozen rivers, and breathing color back into the sky. Scholars from distant kingdoms would later call this phenomenon the dawn beyond fear. But in that quiet moment, as the mountains hummed and the titans knelt in gratitude, Mira called it something simpler. Home, she said. The word rippled through the valley. Kaen heard it and bowed his head. The titans, beings once feared as monsters, followed his lead. Their shadows no longer darkened the land. They embraced it instead, massive silhouettes kneeling in reverence before the small, fragile woman who had taught them to feel again. In the villages far below, people began to tell new stories. Once, mothers had frightened their children with tales of the giants of frost, warning them never to wander into the mountains after sunset. Now they told a different tale of the girl who sang to the ice, who forgave what could not forgive itself, and whose voice awakened a sleeping god to kindness. They called her Mira, the gentle. And they spoke of Kaen, not as the destroyer, but as the shield of renewal, the titan who knelt to protect instead of crush. Even the songs changed. The old dirges once sung in fear of the north wind now carried hope. When the wind howled across the mountains, villagers no longer hid. They listened. Some said they could hear laughter in the gusts, deep, resonant, like Kaen's voice rumbling through the clouds. Others swore they heard Mira's melody woven through it, carrying promises of spring. Seasons passed. The mountains that once bled storms now bloomed gardens, vast, breathtaking sanctuaries where flowers grew taller than men, and rivers glittered with the color of molten silver. Mira walked among them often, barefoot, her laughter echoing like birdsong. Kaen would follow at a distance, careful never to crush the paths she walked. His shadow stretched across meadows and forests, but it no longer frightened those who saw it. The creatures of the new world had learned that his darkness meant shelter, not danger. Sometimes when night fell and the auroras shimmered above, Mira would sit upon a ridge and hum the song that began it all. The titans would gather, their enormous forms encircling her like a living fortress. Their eyes glowed softly, reflecting starlight and peace. Kaen would sit nearest to her, his gaze fixed not on the stars, but on her face, the human who had taught eternity how to be kind. Years turned like gentle tides. The scars of the old world faded, covered by forests and memory. Yet the heart of renewal still pulsed beneath the mountains, guarded by the pair whose story had become legend. One night, as the moon hung low and silver over the valley, Mira spoke quietly. "When I first found you, I thought the world was ending." Kaen smiled faintly. "And I thought I was its end. But we were both wrong," she whispered. "It was only beginning again." Kaen nodded, his gaze distant, watching the titans move like mountains in motion below. "The world needed a song," he said. "And you sang one strong enough to wake it." "And you," Mira said, her eyes shining, "were brave enough to listen." Silence followed, but it was not empty. It was full of everything they had saved, everything they had become. When the first light of dawn broke over the peaks, Mira stood beside Kaen once more. The sun touched the snowcaps and turned them to fire. The world below shimmered in hues of gold, green, and rose. "This is the dawn beyond fear," Mira whispered, the words almost lost in the wind. Kaen looked down at her, a rare, quiet smile curving his lips. "Then let's keep it that way." And as the light spread, across forests, across oceans, across the faces of those who once trembled, the legend of the heart of renewal became something living, not a tale to warn children, but a promise to the world, that even monsters can heal, that even frozen hearts can bloom, that gentleness can rule giants, and that sometimes the smallest voice can awaken the world.